I call Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker, nā mihi nui kia koutou. Kia ora. I rise to take the call on the Building Amendment Bill number 4. I'm filling in tonight and will only be taking a quick call from my colleague and Green Party housing spokesperson, Holly Walker. Mr Speaker, I wanted to touch on this bill because I've recently, in the last couple of weeks, become a homeowner. One of the few people in my generation who's in a privileged position that can afford a house. I mean, we've got to be frank. My generation, people in their late 20s, early 30s, home ownership is just a distant dream. You know, they're resigned to a life of renting because we've got some of the most unaffordable housing stock in the country. But the flip side is, Mr Speaker, when you look at our rental housing stock, we've got some of the worst standard rental housing in the world, Mr Speaker. I've been touring the country, checking out some of our coldest, dampest flats, and it's a crime, Mr Speaker, what some of our New Zealanders, including refugees, superannuists and students, have to put up with. We're talking about holes in walls, we're talking about mould on the ceiling and the walls, we're talking about kids growing up getting asthma and other respiratory diseases because of the poor standard of our housing in New Zealand. And it's a key issue, and that's why the Greens approach this bill in a constructive manner. That's why we will be voting, unlike the Labour Party, to support this bill to Select Committee. It's a key issue, Mr Speaker. We've got so many housing issues facing us. We've got a homelessness problem with potentially tens of thousands of Kiwis classed as homelessness. We've got the rebuild in Christchurch, which the member Nikki Wagner touched on, talking about 10,000 houses. But 70,000 houses have been identified in Auckland as a housing shortage there. We've got the substandard housing stock that I've touched on. Though, I guess on the upside, we do have 150,000 Kiwi homes warmer and drier because of the MOU between the Greens and the National Party for the Warm Up New Zealand Heat Smart project, which we're very proud about. But we've also got this terrible legacy of the leaky buildings. And what the lesson of the leaky buildings saga must be is when you remove all the regulation, like we did in 1991, which Trevor Mallard touched on, and other speakers, you run into problems. And now Kiwis, councils, the government, builders, companies, they're all facing huge, literally billions of dollars in liability and costs. It's a huge part of our economy, 5%, as the Building Act Review points out. More than 20,000 buildings get built a year. And like the Building Act now number 3, the Greens supported that to the Select Committee, but like Labour, we have felt there were some concerns. We didn't agree, and I read from our minority report that with the Building Act Amendment Bill number 3, we agreed with the Labour Party that we couldn't see it achieving its objective because it's a piecemeal approach that includes only some parts of the reform agenda that's been widely discussed with the industry over the last few years. Our objection, Mr Speaker, is that the government was doing it piecemeal, leaving so much up to regulations, and it is welcomed by the Green Party to see the Building Amendment Bill number 4 in front of us now, because we can finally see the rest of the puzzles put together, Mr Speaker. So we will be supporting it to Select Committee. We're going to constructively engage with the submissions and welcome those. We support the bill because it introduces enhanced and more comprehensive consumer protection measures for building work, including the mandatory disclosure of certain information. We think it's perhaps appropriate, and we'll be looking in the Select Committee around increasing the maximum penalties for doing building work without a building consent. But, Mr Speaker, we again, like with the Labour Party, lament the fact that it did not address the consumer protection recommendations, though in the Building Act number 4, which we're seeing in front of us, new sections 362A and 362S proposed to be inserted in the Act, hopefully will remedy this. Mr Speaker, an area which I've just picked up reading the Kensington Swan analysis of the bill, which I'd be interested in getting further comment on down the line from the Minister, is around the warranty section. Their analysis of the bill identifies that if someone builds their own home or has major renovation works, that person is still liable even if the house is sold subsequently down the line. The analysis points to the fact that you could have potentially 6 home owners have gone through a house and still the home builder, which could be a family because it excludes developers or registered builders, the home owner, which is a family who maybe did it in that great Kiwi tradition of DIY and built a home for their family, maybe with some builder support. 6 houses being sold down the line will still be faced with the liability issues from this House. Now, what's the outcome of this? We're going to see fewer Kiwis building their own homes. We're going to see fewer Kiwis being using perhaps what's described as novel or alternative or sustainable building techniques or methods or products. What we're going to see is a boon for professional builders as people shy away, worried from the liability issues. And the key question is, where does it end? Since Kensington Swan analysed up to 6, is it a dozen, is it 10? Could you have 20 families go through a house, yet that original builder, that family, still be liable? And the outcome is going to be that we're going to see less family homes built. We're going to see more McMansions built with the same stock. So there's going to be some perverse outcomes potentially to this bill. That's why the Green Party goes into it with an open mind. That's why we're going in from a constructive viewpoint, and we'll be voting to send it to Select Committee, and we look forward to the public's input there. Mr. Speaker, we've got a saying in New Zealand, safe as houses, and what the Green Party wants to see in New Zealand, those homes safe as houses.
I call Maggie Barry.
Mr. Speaker.